Hello and welcome to the last video, I would assume, for Close Beta 2, Maplestory 2. I don't think I'll be uploading any of the last day of Close Beta 2 because I feel like majority of the players has already quit before the last day of Close Beta 2 due to the lack of things to do, or it's gonna get wiped again, so it lost a lot of motivation for a lot of people. And I feel like the amount of players that we have, it's in EU at least, there's quite very low, limited. That person just drops by on the recording, but yeah. There's quite a few people around, and I feel like there's not much to record anyways, especially when majority of the people that I planned to spend the day on the last day did not show up for a week already, the last week. So I don't think there's going to be much for me to record because I don't think there's going to be much of interaction in Queenstown. I don't know, there might be some people playing all their tunes and music and such, but the core group that I had from Close Beta 1 is not even there, so I kind of feel a little bit demotivated to record anything for that. But I do hope everyone had a good Close Beta 2, for those that tried it out and for those that played it and tested things out. I felt like the game itself had a lot of more bugs than the Close Beta 1, but obviously we had a little bit more things added to the game. We were supposed to try out different things, etc. They're focusing a lot on the new features like Mush King Royale and such, and I took the survey and I felt like it's not really part of the core of the game. I feel like it's just a mini game, but I believe the game itself, at least in EU, is gonna need some boost for sure. Hopefully they're gonna have an open beta or a release soon, so that the game doesn't really die out by itself, because of the hype is gonna die out. As long as there's no wipe anymore, I believe the game might survive and people are gonna put more effort, put more time playing the game, obviously. So I'm gonna be covering up a little bit of my own progress, as mentioned before on the previous video of the PvP build. As you've already seen, I got my legendary items. Obviously a little bit of help from the guild codex in EU for helping out people that wanted to finish off some dungeon runs or Chaos Devorak. And obviously you're gonna have to pull your own weight on DPSing as well if you wanna learn the mechanics and try to help out dishing out the damage. So covering up things, PvP gear and such and whatever, that's gonna be needed for Chaos Devorak. Obviously a lot of people that reach 3.3k in Close Beta 2 thought, oh, I'm gonna try out Chaos Devorak, and then they realized they're not doing enough damage, and I have a lot of footage, not streaming footage or any video footage, but I do have a lot of screenshots taken for parses or DPS meter, and a lot of people that didn't have enough piercing for Chaos Devorak usually wouldn't make it that far. And the reason for that is piercing damage is ignoring the defense of the enemy. So the defense of Devorak is pretty high, so having that piercing will help you dish out a lot more damage. Likewise with having boss damage, the more boss damage you have, the more damage you deal to the boss as well. But speaking of that, I did cover this up as well, like people need to focus on bonus attributes instead of focusing on looking at your own gear score attack. Like a lot of people are typing, I'm on 3.3k, I'm on 4k gear score, blah blah blah, and You can easily get that by upgrading your armor and such, and your weapon. Majority of the things are going to be based off your weapon when it comes to damage. So having, you know, plus 11, plus 12, plus 13, whatever on your weapon is always going to be really helpful. But on armor and such, just to boost your gear score and saying that you're really high on gear score is not going to help you at all for the boss, because upgrading your armor is just upgrading your defense, and defense doesn't really matter in chaos raids in general. It's time limited, 15 minutes obviously, and you're gonna have to kill a boss that has a lot of health and a lot of defense, so having piercing is more important. So bonus attributes comes in mind, and damage to boss is also coming into the mind when it comes to bonus stats for your gear. So having that is really, really important. Obviously, for example, this ring, it has piercing and damage to the boss. Really, really good, super good for bossing. However, it's not maxed out stats, but it's still better than whatever ring that majority of people had when they tried out Chaos Devorak. I really didn't have any special, I guess. A lot of these things are really, really bad now because they're expiring, but something that I also mentioned was having PvP items gave you a lot of piercing, and having the Dark Descent gave you also some extra damage like strength and physical piercing. Even though it's not the main stats, it's still, you know, second to third best stats that you can equip on yourself, apart from boss damage or regular piercing. So that's something that people needs to be covered. A health build should not be even considered. Same thing with critical. You don't know how much you're gonna be critting, so going flat damage is probably the best way to put on your attribute points. As for small tips, for example, don't put any insignias so it doesn't cover up your the screen. Don't put any badges that alters your name, because you want to have people with, such as tank, more important to be noticeable on the map, to have their badges on so you know where to locate them, or force them, or not force them, but they should mandatory call out whenever they are using their invisible skills. So that's some few tips for people out there, especially like when we did a few practice runs with random people. A lot of people don't call out and they just stand there and doing things by themselves, and everyone's like trying to survive and expecting, you know, certain things from the tank to do something or say something. So make a habit, you know, call out. If you're not in a voice call, you know, type 1 in the chat or whatever, if you're playing as a knight, for example. Other than that, I guess we're going on with the build as a Berserker. I have derailed a little bit. This is supposed to be a summarize of the builds that I kind of enjoyed using in general for everything now. So for this build, we are going Death Spin maxed out. Death Spin is going to be helpful in any case of PvE situation, especially Devorak and well, I guess you could arguably switch between Death Spin and Void Slash, depending on what you prefer. I kind of prefer Death Spin, and one of the reasons for that is when you are spinning around, or when the tank doesn't have any shields, the laser that the wreck does that spins around, that spin is going to be more helpful for you than using Void Slash, in my opinion. But this is also helpful for example, Pyros, or for balrog, if you need to chase them down, or in general the holes, for example, in Pyros you can spin down below. So having the spin maxed out is really good. Groundbreaker is your main DPS as usual. Void Slash this time is gonna be prerequisite skill or level for Warrior Instinct, which is at level 6. So Darkbreaker, I removed that from my hotbar, not gonna need it. because you don't use any of your stacks. What else? I would assume it's good, for example, if Delrak is spinning around and your knight doesn't have any shield, you can place the Darkbreaker and then start to spin to build up your stacks. That will increase slightly if you want to min-max, but other than that, you keep the stacks for Groundbreaker. But yeah, I don't think there's much to say about the whole build. I mean, everything else is a little bit more passive, I guess. Like Warrior Instinct, really good skill. So I did have my build, for example, for Chaos Devrak in the previous videos regarding blood price. It would be more damage every minute. I felt like after trying out things, if you stack piercing, you might as well stack even more piercing. And piercing caps at 30%. So if you did not reach 30% yet, I would recommend Warrior Instinct. So Warrior Instinct, since you already went this path down anyways, Warrior Instinct is really good. So this is also helpful for you if you're playing versus balrog. You take a little bit more damage from the boss, or you can resist more damage from balrog having Warrior Instinct. So this is also one of the reasons why I didn't bother to change anything for Chaos Devrak, because you are going to need piercing, obviously, for the clear, for the completion, or for the kill. So having this, it's maxed out at 9, really helpful in general. Boosts your piercing and you will dish out damage without having anything to activate. So it's a big damage boost for yourself, and helpful for balrog or helpful for any dungeons. Blood loss, obviously 10 out of 10. There are times where you're not going to be able to heal yourself because the potion debuff or whatever, or any other situation when you don't have a priest, for example, or if your priest is far away dealing with the tank to heal your party members or and such. Blood loss is your safety or skill, I guess, or your best self-healing skill. And then the remaining points that you have left is going to be spent on Greatsword Mastery, because there's nothing else left to put on. I mean, Greatsword Mastery increases your damage in general, so having it on level 6, or it caps at 6 if you got enough skill points with trophies, it gives you 4% increased damage for all your abilities. So that's all I have to say. It doesn't really require much to do except for using five skills, or 5 abilities, active abilities. 6 if you want to count in for Darkbreaker, which I don't have on my hotbar, but mainly 5 abilities, or 4. And the reason why I say 5 now and 6 whatever for Darkbreaker, that's because of Raging Slash. So Raging Slash is a skill that you won't be using that much, but it's worth to have it on your hotbar. Whenever you're out of spirit, which rarely happens because you're always going to have 20 spirit regen, it's not going to be helpful when you get hit by the stun from the Chaos Devrak, for example, or if you accidentally dashes into the field or the circle after the stun. That one drains your spirit. It will put you a debuff that you won't gain any spirit for roughly 10 seconds or so. So instead of using basic attacks, Raging Slash is your way to deal the damage when you don't have any spirit, which shouldn't happen, but it does happen if you're new to the raid, and if you happen to accidentally fuck up or anything, Raging Slash is there for you. So that and Blood Loss is going to be available whenever you don't have any spirit, and then once you have spirit, you just let Spin or Groundbreaker, Void Slash yourself up with your DPS. Now, I would like to thank you very much for watching all the videos if you have, but I appreciate if you guys watch this video, because this is a summarize of Closed Beta 2, or Maplestory 2, Closed Beta 2. There isn't much to do, I guess, or not much to cover now. Wish I recorded the run with Chaos Devrak, but Majority of those are already available on Blink's Twitch if you want to watch the VODs, but he usually streamed all of the runs that he did Chaos Direct with his guild or with all the randoms that he carried as well. So if you want to watch me perform, it's on his Twitch channel obviously. But as usual, like you're always gonna have some merits to spend, because you're gonna die if you haven't practiced all the phases, and it happens to the best as well. You will die from time to time, but that's fine. As long as you don't die over 4 times, you should be fine. But yeah, thank you very much for watching my videos of Close Beta 2. There will probably be more videos obviously in the future, but for right now I don't think there's much left to cover. This is my, I guess, ultimate build for my Berserker until they add more skill points to the game, or awakening skills. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys eventually.